today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. BlenderHD. You want to follow me on Twitter? And it's Monday, June 24th. You know what we do on Mondays. Mondays with McCool. We bring in James McCool, the co-author with me. The Theory of DFS, 15-hour audio DFS masterclass that you can pick at theoryofdfs.com. We'll be taking a look at the 9 game? MLB slate for tonight. Props and pick them if you got them. So hit that thumbs up button on your first time in the door. Get in the door. Get in the door. Hit that button. Click on some stuff on the screen. Right? It helps us out. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. We'll have Grinders live in crunch time later today. They'll break down this slate in much more detail than we will. First look in the morning. Weather looks pretty uneventful. So I don't know if you're going to need an update from Roth later tonight. But other than that, it's starting to warm up, James. Starting to warm up. Are we going to see much bigger totals now? Or what? I mean, what do we expect? Because today we got it's like 100 degrees in Kansas City. The wind blowing out. Are we hopefully going to see a lot more of that heading into the summer, or is it going to be not as great? It just feels like we have tons of pitchers that are good that are injured, but it also seems like the totals for late June, we still see like there's only like one team. There's one team with higher than a 5-run total. What's going on, James?
I mean, dead balls are still here. That's
You're not allowed to say that on YouTube. Dead balls are still here.
Whatever, man.
So you're blaming the balls?
Yes. Yeah, I 100% blame balls. We have the same data that we had 2 years ago, where we see the balls not flying as far on balls that it should be. See, the exit velocities are similar, but the outcomes are considerably less. Like we're losing something like 15 feet on fly balls that should be home runs. The ball sucks this year. And at this point, I don't know if the MLB has any clue of what's going on with the ball, even though they're the ones that implemented the change. So, yeah, I blame it on the balls, but we should see, we saw some weirdly high totals yesterday. We've seen a couple higher totals this week. For instance, the Tigers had a team total of like 5 yesterday, which is high for the Tigers. We are going to see more offense. We have already seen more offense overall, but I don't know how long it's going to take for the Vegas lines to catch up. I think there's probably edge on overs for like a week, and then things will be got back up to normal, I think.
Which typically you don't see. Typically, because the public people, normal people, they like betting the overs, right? They don't like watching a baseball game and rooting for stuff not to happen.
Right.
Maybe it could be an edge. I mean, still for the most part, I mean, in my props, I'm still taking like 70-80% unders. But those are prop bets. But yeah, the home run props may not have. They haven't been adjusted as much. So like this year, I think compared to last year, the amount of home run props that I take has gone down significantly because they have not adjusted. And of course, the ones that I am taking are like longer shots.
Yeah.
So the variance in my home run props are like there could be 2 or 3 days where I don't hit a single one. Mm-hmm. There may be one day where I hit like 5 on one day, and they're all like plus 700s, plus 900s. So it's like it feels like a GPP graph just for that stat category of like, oh, yeah, but then down. But today we do have the Royals with the highest team total on the slate. I mean, it's kind of a sort of a weird slate for DFS. We got the Dodgers, but they have a lower total. When the Royals and the Pirates and the Padres you could expect a little bit. And the Angels and the Reds and the Red Sox are like, those are the higher total teams. Yeah, it's going to be a little weird today, but pitching wise, we got a whole bunch of good pitchers on today's slate. And we also have a whole bunch of not good pitchers on today. It's like we got some pitchers. Oh, I'm interested in taking and rostering, and then I look at the bottom and I go, yeah, I got a whole lot of pitchers that I'm looking to take all the bats I can against. And sometimes they end up being the same thing if you want to get some leverage. But we got Freddie Peralta at 9,500 against Texas. We got Justin Steele at 8,500 against San Francisco. We got Lance Lynn, 7,900 against the Braves. We got Crochet against the Dodgers, tougher matchup, 9,700. Cole Reagan's 10-1 against Miami. I mean, Tanner Hawk, is always viable, but I still don't understand why he's the highest priced pitcher on the slate against Toronto. Like Chris Bassett against Boston projects okay. Schwellenbach against St. Louis is, middle of the road. Waldron, who's a knuckleballer against the Nationals. And then the cheap stuff, if you want to get an expensive stack, you just play any pitcher against Oakland, and that's Griffin Canning at 6,100. And just hope he doesn't give up 4 home runs. So like Griffin Canning ain't that bad of a pitcher. Just I don't mind Oakland stacks if Griffin Canning is going to be popular.
Yeah.
What is your take? Let's start with the higher end stuff. So we're talking about guys like Reagans and Peralta and Crochet. I think people are going to spend there's value on the slate from a bat perspective. So I think it's viable to even play a Reagans Peralta lineup. You're kind of forced into certain stacks, so you're going to be playing probably some cheap Royals and some cheap Pirates in your lineup. Out of these three, Reagans, Peralta, Crochet, Peralta we currently have is like twice as owned as the other two. Do you think Peralta is worth twice the ownership as Reagans and Crochet today?
No, that ownership is really silly. Peralta's fine. Like he's fine. I have him projected basically the same as Crochet and slightly higher than Hawk, but not by much. The one that I have above the field, notably above everyone else, is Cole Reagans. So I have a couple points above Freddie Peralta, who is the second highest projection. But when he's grouped in there with the other high price guys, there's no reason for me to want to prioritize him over the other ones. So that ownership's kind of silly. I think that people are probably going to jump back on the Cole Reagan strain against Miami because Miami is so bad. I don't see the ownership getting up there that high on Freddie Peralta against Texas. I don't see that. I understand that's what
his strikeout rate, and he's also 600 cheaper. So you think the ownership will be closer? It's quite possible that maybe they both come in at around maybe 32% owned.
Well, you just said that it's not like we're having issues fitting expensive pitchers on this slate. The Pirates are chalk, for God's sakes. So I'm not sure why we would worry about $600 between Peralta and Crochet when Crochet has had the best strikeout percentage in the league over the last month, and has been one of the better pitchers in the league in terms of strikeout potential in the entire season. That $600 difference again between facing either Miami, who everyone laughs at, or Texas, who is the reigning world champion, I just don't see the ownership being higher for Freddie Peralta. I think the way that I have ownership right now is I have Reagan's 35% and I have Freddie Peralta at 25%. That's
but you definitely would have Crochet the lowest because people don't want to play pitchers against the Dodgers.
Well, I have Hawk the lowest because he's overpriced, but then yes, of the three that are priced correctly, Crochet is the lowest.
Right, but you do agree that Tanner Hawk probably should be more like an $8,800 pitcher. Or a 9K, a 9,200. Whatever. But not 10-5.
Yeah, no, he's about $1,000 overpriced at the least. I think he's probably a high 8s, low 9s pitcher.
Okay. But you would agree that these are the pitchers, like, I mean, outside of Hawk, who's overpriced, Reagans, Crochet, Peralta, like, these are A bucket pitchers. Like, these are, like, if you had one lineup to play, like, would these be the only guys? Would you include Justin Steele at 8,500 against San Francisco, being that he's even cheaper than these guys and getting a ballpark upgrade, and he's actually a good pitcher? I mean, like, Justin Steele, yeah, I mean, coming back from injury, had some issues, but for the most part, like, I mean, shouldn't he be in the same range as these other guys? I mean, shouldn't he be 9,500 also? I mean, right?
No. He projects for 15 and on what you're looking at. For me, he projects for 17. Like, he's fine. I think that he is right there with Tanner Hawk. I think they're both very similar in terms of their value. So high 8s, low 9s. I think Justin Steele is slightly underpriced, if you want to make that argument, and Tanner Hawk is very overpriced. But I don't think he's a $9,500 pitcher. He's not Peralta Crochet material here.
So you could solidly.
I think there's probably an argument to be made that Crochet and Peralta are both a couple $100 underpriced. Those guys are 10K pitchers, whereas Justin Steele is maybe a couple $100 underpriced. Like, those guys are definitely all underpriced by a couple $100. So I think they're all about the same value. But I think that I would not say that they are all the same level of pitcher.
Right. Well, of course, but I'm just saying for the price.
Yeah.
Would Justin Steele make the A bucket of, like, typically the A bucket is like, I'm playing single entry 3 max.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play at least one of the pitchers in the A bucket. Like, if whether it's a value or it's because they have the highest raw ceiling. Like, you would put all, like, Hawk would definitely go in the B bucket because of price. Well, we could talk about, like, someone like Lance Lynn against the Braves. Like, what do you think of him? Like, is he a B bucket pitcher or a C bucket pitcher? Like, C bucket is like, you're playing large field contests. You're not crazy for taking a shot on someone, like, type of bucket. B is kind of like, here are, like, the leverage plays and the guys that are maybe slightly overpriced are the guys that are values, but they're very high variance. So we're like Lance Lynn at 7,900. I mean, he's a guy that can pitch 105, 110 pitches. I mean, I don't like playing pitchers against the Braves, but it's not like his ownership is going to be there. I don't mind taking a shot on Lance Lynn enough to put him in the B bucket. You're not a Lance Lynn guy, it seems.
I think he's fine. I would probably put him in C. There's guys that I have above him in terms of raw value.
So who do you got above Lance Lynn?
Well, I mean, if we're looking through at, like, prices and everything, I think that, like, we would have those A tier guys. And B tier for me would probably be Chris Bassett, Justin Steele, Tanner Hawk.
Okay.
And Carson Spears, which we can touch on a little bit later. But he's my SPT.
Really? Whoa, hold on. No, we can't. You can't just say that. And
yes, I can, because we haven't gotten to the value plays yet.
Okay, well, okay. I guess we'll talk. I guess so, because to say that you're going to put him in the B bucket is, yeah, that's a little crazy.
Well, value and leverage matters.
That's a little nutty. How about Waldron at 8,300? I mean, Waldron has to make at least the C bucket, if not the B bucket.
Yeah, he's there.
Nationals.
Yeah.
So let's get to it, because I now I'm distracted by you Spears.
All right.
So you'd rather play Spears? I'm talking about raw point projection. You'd rather play Spears over Canning?
Yeah. I think they're probably pretty close. I have Spears projected over Canning here.
Right. Understand. I'm looking at the bad projections, and Canning projects for 5 more mean points, higher than Spears.
Yeah.
So
and I have Spears.
Why my eyes are like, Derek Carty's rolling in his hair gel.
Yeah. So I have Spears 4 points above Canning. My stuff is not.
How is that possible?
I mean, Spears has had good metrics this year. Remember, I work on smaller sample sizes. So Spears' metrics this year have been considerably better than Canning. And it's not like Oakland is a terrible team in terms of power, which is where Canning gives it up, right? Like they have power guys that can hit. They just have issues with strikeout stuff. So I certainly can understand the argument for Canning over Spears from a projection standpoint. It's not like I'm saying that's crazy. But Spears this year, if we're looking at so far as 2024, 7.1 K per nine, 1.78 walk per nine, 70% left on base rate. That's right where it should be. XFIP is 4.1. That's not bad. ERA is 3.2. He does not have bad strikeout rates. He does not have a bad strikeout per walk ratio. He's been right in line in terms of BABIP and left on base rates. If anything, his BABIP is even a little bit too high for how low of a ground ball rate he has. And the other thing about it is in the minors, he didn't ever really have any issues with walk rates, which is a big thing that I look at. And then if you look at his minor league stuff for this year for AAA, his strikeout rates were better than what he had in previous years in AAA, which means that he has improved. I just think that he is both me from a pitcher evaluation standpoint, looking at somebody who has kind of like baseline to above average stuff in terms of his pitch mix and his command, has proven to be good in the minor leagues and not have an elevated walk rate as he moves up through the minors. And then in his pretty small sample in terms of being in the majors, been a solid MLB level pitcher. All of those things matter. So I really like Spears and the way that I model out like Spears a lot. When you put him next to somebody like Griffin Canning, who has not been great this year, was not great last year, has home run issues up against an Oakland team that does have some power hitters, I don't think that's crazy. Now, again, I understand Canning over Spears here, and I think that Canning is going to end up getting relatively high ownership on this slate. But the way that I like to build out, like I probably, as of right now, I would like to do something like Freddie Peralta with Carson Spears, so I can lower the volatility a little bit of my lineup by eating the highest owned pitcher and pairing him with one of the lower owned pitchers against the leverage spot. That's how I would play single entry. So I like Spears a lot. I think he's a really, really good real life pitcher. I think he has a good pitch mix. I think that in a short sample, he has looked good. And 6,400, I don't think he's like an 8K pitcher, but I think he's mid sevens. So I think he's somewhere around $1,000 underpriced.
Okay, well, I guess I'll be playing my Pirates lineup against him and see what happens.
I have unders on like all the Pirates hitters too, so I'm completely against the field on this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to play DFS today, but if I did, I'd 100% have Spears in single entry.
Well, let's talk about stacks now, and you know what we do when we talk about stacks? We rank them in tiers, A, B, C, D, F. Right. And this is all in relation to ownership. It's adjusted for ownership. So the higher owned teams, they'll get dinged, even if they have the highest raw projection. And the same thing for leverage, right? If you're a team that provides a lot of leverage against a high owned pitcher, you may actually get a little bit of a bump, right? So ownership matters. And also it's 5 guys on DraftKings. So just because a team is in the lower tiers doesn't mean you can't play a batter from them, but maybe not all 5. So let's start it off with the highest raw point projection team that I'm just going by the bat on the slate, regardless of price, and that's the San Diego Padres against Patrick Corbin. Once you see Patrick Corbin's name on the sheet, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the team. The Padres are an A-tier team.
Yeah. I won't argue it. I think they're fine. I don't think that the Padres are like a good team right now. And isn't Tatis out? Did he get injured?
It makes the stack cheaper. Who cares?
Oh, well, Tatis is by far their best player.
Well, obviously.
I
we
think
have him in the projected lineup.
Okay, yeah. As long as he plays, I'm probably more okay with it. Jackson Merrill has been good. Jake Cronenworth has been good. Like they're good. They're a fine team. I don't mind putting them in A. I just did want to. I wanted to point out that they're not as good as I think the name value gives them.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. But Patrick Corbin ain't good.
No, I agree. Yeah, he's and you know me. I will find any reason not to put a high owned stack in the A slot, and like I'm not even going to fight you on this. Like, just go ahead.
Yeah, but I don't think the Padres are going to be as owned as. I mean, they'll be one of the higher owned teams, but not like the highest owned team. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I don't have them as the highest.
Right. I think two other teams are going to be higher owned than the Padres. One is the team that's facing Carson Spears in Cincinnati, the Great American Small Park, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, just for ownership purposes, I mean, I'm not going to put them in the A tier, but based on James, I mean, Carson Spears is a future 5-time Cy Young winner. So, I mean, are the Pirates just going in the F tier for you now, just because, I mean, who could possibly hit Carson Spears? So, like, it's like any time the Carson Spears is a pitcher, that team just has no shot.
I don't know, man. Even like if you want to make that joke, like, do you know how many runs Pittsburgh has been scoring as of late?
Not many.
Like the Pittsburgh's not a good team. Over the last 5 games, they're averaging 2 runs per game. Over the last 10, they're averaging 3.4. Over the last 25, they're averaging 4.36. They're on a big downward trend. They're not a good team. And Cincinnati's bullpen is pretty good. I just teams don't score a lot of runs against Cincinnati bullpen either. Pittsburgh, they're not a good team. They're up against a pitcher that is I think at the worst the back of the rotation arm. They're up against a good bullpen, and they're going to be super chalky. They're bad. They're a bad player.
So I'm fine with those. I'll put them in the C tier. I'll say that they project well, but they're going to be way over-owned. You made your case. That's fine. How about the other team? The Kansas City Royals against Rodri Munoz in a 100-degree heat with the wind blowing out at 10 miles an hour. I mean, come on. I mean, other than ownership, they're not maybe not A because of ownership, but they're a B tier team. I mean, Adam Frazier may be leading off, and he's like under 3K. Bobby Witt's the only expensive guy in the entire stack.
Mm-hmm.
You got to like the Royals.
Well, I do want the Royals in B tier, but let's also just for argument's sake, go over what their runs scored have been over the last couple games. Kansas City over the last 5 games, 1.2 runs per game. Over the last 10, 2.5. Over the last 25, only 3.96. That is the 6th worst team in the league so far. They have not scored 8 or more runs at all in the last 10 games, and they are going up against Miami bullpen that is not good, not terrible. Now, I do think that Munoz is terrible. And that's kind of the big thing. I do have them as one of the best stacks on the slate. Even with all of these negative trends, I still think that they are one of the best stacks, just like from a projection standpoint. But I do think that it is also worth saying this is a team that is not scoring runs, that is trending terribly, that is going to be very, very high owned. And I think there is reason for getting away from them if you like the pitchers that are chalky better. Remember, it's all about how you put all this stuff together. It doesn't matter if you eat Kansas City chalk. Who cares? Just be reticent of the amount of volatility that you're taking on with that. And if you like the highest owned pitchers better, like say that you can get, the 2 highest owned pitchers, say that it ends up being like Griffin Canning and Freddie Peralta, and they combine for, I don't know, 90 ownership or something like that, aggregate. 45% owned both of them. If you like those guys a lot, I think you just don't play Kansas City. There's a lot of reasons to get away from them. But all of that said, just playing devil's advocate on that, I do think they're a good stack and they project very well.
Okay, next highest projected team, and then after this team, there's a decent enough gap. The other side of that Pirates game, the Cincinnati Reds against Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter, pitcher, # not good.
Yeah.
I mean, the Reds are going to be probably top 5 in ownership, but I think the Pirates are going to be higher owned than the Reds. Maybe the Reds are an A-tier team.
I'd say B tier. I don't think A tier. I'll give it B. Reds are also not really a good team.
Most teams aren't really good teams.
Well, yeah, and most teams shouldn't be in the A tier. So I'll give it B tier.
Okay,
That's fine.
Let's go down point per dollar value now in the bat, because we have a lot of 75% of the teams on the slate are clumped very close together. First one, the cheapest team on the slate, the Miami Marlins against Cole Reagans. Cole Reagans 30+% owned.
Yeah.
But not like 40+% owned. And this is a 9-game slate, not like a 6-game slate.
Yeah.
Is that enough leverage for the Marlins not to be an F-tier team?
No, they're an F-tier team. Reagans is really good. And that I do not see that. The only argument that you can really have there is that the Kansas City bullpen is really bad. And if they get to Reagans, then they get to feast on one of like a bottom 3 bullpen in the league. But I have them with a really, really low projection overall. I do not like them whatsoever. I think there are better leverage spots you can have.
And I'm assuming one of those better leverage spots is Oakland against Griffin Canning.
Yes, that is a much better leverage spot.
Is that enough leverage? How owned do you think Griffin Canning is going to be? Now, he obviously, I mean, the A's by themselves, if it wasn't for leverage, would still be in the D tier today, like from their projection. So it's like they're not an F tier team that's getting bumped up because of leverage. So I'm making the case that the leverage actually bumps them from D to C. So they end up in the C category. The A's have like a decent, like 4.3 implied team. It's not like they have a sub 4 team total today. And they're cheap. I mean, they're stacking the A's. I mean, you could play Cole Reagans and Freddie Peralta in your lineup.
I really like Oakland in this spot. I certainly think C tier makes the most sense. I would not put them in the D tier. I think Griffin Canning is probably going to touch 20% owned in smaller fields, maybe 25% owned in something like the 250. So yeah, I certainly think that they are valuable here. And as you know, especially looking at some of the X slugs that we have here, Tyler Soderstrom 590 X slug, Shea Langoliers 550, JJ Bleday 530, G-Law 480, Brent Rooker 460. Like, there's power in that lineup. And like I said, Griffin Canning, his weakness is power. So I think they're a great C tier stack, like a higher tier C tier stack. I would much rather play them than Pirates. Much rather.
Okay, let's go down the list. Point per dollar value. We got the Los Angeles Angels against Luis Medina. Probably not going to be that owned. Probably not like really low owned. I mean, are they? I almost feel like I'd rather play the A's over the Angels. I almost want to put the A's in the B tier.
Dude, it's close. Yeah, they're a high.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm going, okay, the C tier, and I look at the Angels, and I'm like, I think I want to play. I all the teams that we're going to talk about next may be C, some D, but I look at this and I go, I think I want to play the A's over all of this. I'm going to move the A's up to the B tier.
I love that. Yep, let's do it. Right. I have the A's with a healthy projection. I was gonna say B, but I didn't want you to meme on me anymore about like these things. I'd already got memed on.
That's why people tune in, James.
It is. Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Oakland A's in the B.
Okay, but then the Angels are like, I look at the Angels, the White Sox against Paxton, like, and then we also have, those are two probably together. Similar projection. The White Sox are going to be much less owned than the Angels because people don't like playing the White Sox. Are the White Sox? I mean, because you're not getting any leverage, but James Paxton is not old James Paxton. James Paxton is more like Patrick Corbin now than like Patrick Corbin back in 2017. It's like the same story. I almost want to put the Angels in the D tier only because the Sox are just like So it's going to be like so low. I mean, the White Sox today, I'm just looking at the projected ownership. I mean, they may be towards like the bottom 5 in ownership on the slate, and they project like better than like the Reds today.
Yeah.
Like like not maybe not better than, but like close enough that I almost don't want to put them in the D tier, and the Angels may be slightly overowned, and they project less than the Angels.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? I mean, this is the tier list is a little bit weird when we're putting teams like the A's and the Sox that we typically stream pitchers against in the B and C tiers, but like if you're gonna play them on any day, like it seems like today's the day to play them.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of ridden a little bit of the White Sox over the last couple weeks. They have not been one of the worst teams to stack. As a mini stack, like you want to do a full stack, but when we had the Dodgers and Coors, I did use the White Sox as a mini, so I don't mind them. For reference here, in my models, I have the Angels scoring 4.34 runs. I have the White Sox scoring 4.45. So I'm fine with the White Sox above the Angels. It's hard because I think that so much of this slate is just C tier. And I understand that we need to have some D tier. And yeah, the Angels, I think that because of their ownership, they're going to have to be down there. But I think that at that same time, like we're going to talk about Atlanta here in a second. And
we're going to get some D, James, we're going to get some D tier teams just based on price because like the teams that project, they're going to be teams that are actually halfway decent, that are just completely overpriced, where the Angels like project as a stack as good as these teams for like even cheaper. Like that's really the basis of the stack tiers. Once we start getting into the bottom half, is just basically like they're all fine. It's just that these are the teams that you're going to have to play a Griffin Canning,
right,
or a Carson and in your case, a Carson, not in anyone else's case, but in your case, a Carson Spears, or you're going to have to play like you're going to play Peralta plus Steele, and then like have to play like 2-3K batters. So you're not even playing like the best parts of the stack. Like you'd have to make some concessions like that. And one of them you mentioned is the Braves against Lance Lynn. I like playing Lance Lynn. I don't mind attacking Lance Lynn.
So here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to do. Based on price, I want to keep the Angels in the C tier.
Right.
They are a D tier team in a lot of ways, but based on price and based on the size of the slate, I think that they are a C tier team. But I do think that the White Sox are above them at the very least. Not like in the B tier, but like if we're looking at like the sequential thing here, right now we have Pirates, Angels, Sox. I would prefer it to be Pirates, Sox, Angels. Just
okay. Well, I mean, we don't do. I just throw them in.
That's just how I always look at it. Whenever we're doing this, I always look at it as like
we don't know what once they're in the tier. I don't even bother with the it just happens.
Well, I do, Jordan. I do. You don't have to do it. Doesn't matter. Just letting you know that's how I think.
How about the okay? Here are two teams that are close together. The Braves against Lynn, the Blue Jays against Hawk. You don't get leverage from either of these two teams. The Blue Jays are cheaper than the Braves, but not by that much. I wouldn't put the Blue Jays on the bottom, but I mean they're like D, I guess. I think I'd much rather take a shot on the Braves against Lynn than, because Lynn has more of a shot of like walking 3 guys and then giving up 2 home runs than Tanner Hawk. So this is where I would put I mean, I'm not thrilled about playing either of these two teams, but they're not the most expensive. So like you may not have to play a 6K pitcher in order to stack either of these two teams.
I would put Toronto in the F tier because they suck. They are the most. They're the most let down team in the league outside of the Cardinals. The Blue Jays and the Cardinals never do what you need them to do, ever. They're the worst chalk possible. Granted, Toronto's not going to be owned, but like, man, I hate playing with the Blue Jays. So I would put them in the F tier. The Braves, teetering right on the edge of C tier here, man, because I would almost rather put them in the D tier because they're just too expensive. They're too expensive. I like with the pitching on this slate. With the pitching on the slate, you have to pair either Canning or Spears with the Braves in order to stack them. I don't want to use Canning, and everybody hates Spears. So why do we have the Braves in the C tier?
Just raw point upside.
Yes, but you're gonna have to. You're pitching.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That you're gonna have to play a cheap pitcher. Okay.
Yeah. Right. They're just right.
Look, so let's compare the Braves to teams like here's 3 teams, similar projection. Here's 4 teams. So these are the overpriced teams for their projection in comparison to some other teams on the slate. The Red Sox, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Brewers. Okay. So like the Dodgers against Crochet is not a team, not a pitcher I want to pick on.
Nope.
But from a raw talent perspective, I can't put them in the F tier. So they go in the D tier just because, yeah, they're overpriced against a good pitcher.
Yeah.
But they're the Dodgers.
Right.
The Red Sox against Bassett are that's a team where I just put in the F tier because Bassett isn't going to be owned. The Red Sox are not nearly as good of a team as as these other teams. They're overpriced. I mean, like, can you tell me any reason why you should be playing the Red Sox today?
I think they have home run upside, but I agree that they're mostly an F tier on this slate. I like Devers. That's basically it. That's I'd be happy to play Devers.
I mean, that's a one-off, but I'm talking about playing 5 of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, on this slate, I agree with you. They're F tier as a stack.
And the Cubs, I would put in the D tier only because I don't mind taking a shot against Spencer Howard. But, I mean, I'm not going to – I mean, them and then same the Brewers against Michael Lorenzen.
I have the Brewers protected really well. I like the Brewers a lot.
I mean, the bat doesn't. And they're the most expensive stack on the slate comparison to price. So, I mean, so you would switch the Brewers and the Braves in like this year.
That's what I would do. Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. I'm not going to argue over, because to me, they're about this. I mean, it's about the same.
Sure.
Right? Even if we did that or whatever. But you agree with the Cubs also, right?
Yeah, I'm not playing a team that just got absolutely shit canned by Severino. There's no way that I'm playing the Cubs, dude. No way.
Okay, going down the list, we also got the Nationals against Matt Waldron.
Yeah.
They're barely going to have any ownership. But any team against Matt Waldron can never be an F tier because if his pitches are off, like he's essentially throwing batting practice.
Yeah. I really hate playing Washington, but yeah, D tier makes the most sense for the slate, I think.
And then we got the cheapie, I'm not the cheapie, but the really low projected teams according to the bat. First one, we got the Cardinals against Schwellenbach, the Rangers against Peralta, and the Giants against Steele. I'm going to put the Cardinals on the F tier only because Schwellenbach is not going to really be owned. Maybe he'll be 10% owned. So it's not like you're getting leverage. Maybe even be 5% owned. Peralta is going to be the highest owned. The Steele will be moderately owned. I don't think Steele gives you enough leverage to play the Giants, but I do think that Peralta will be high enough owned, and it's the Texas Rangers. I don't think they're a bad team.
Yeah.
So I mean, they at least go on the D tier. So do you have any problems with Cardinals and Giants on the F tier and the Rangers on the D tier, or do you think one of these should be moved up or around?
I think that St. Louis should probably be D tier, but that's the only change that I have. I think St. Louis has some home run upside and does have power upside in this matchup. They don't offer much leverage, but I do think that they are, like you said, from a raw points perspective, I think that they are valuable in that way.
Right, but you agree with the Giants being an F tier team?
Yes, yeah. No need to play Giants. The Giants, like I said, I think I said it 2 weeks ago. When have the Giants won a slate ever? They just don't win slates. Like they just don't do anything for you.
And the Rangers, you don't think even move up even further because of leverage?
I want to say
that they may be one of the lowest owned teams on the entire slate. I know Freddie Peralta can get blown up. But if this was a shorter slate, like if this was a 6-game slate, I would move the Rangers up even further. But it's a 9-game slate. So like here's the concept that I've talked about like 700 times on this show, is that just because you get leverage on a pitcher doesn't mean that the stack gets it. Like the pitcher could fail and the stack could fail also, right? If Freddie Peralta goes out there, throws 4 1/3, and gave up 5 runs and 2 home runs, and the final score is 5-2. I mean, like, Peralta, all the lineups with Peralta are done. But your lineup didn't get there. I mean, your lineup's fine, but the Rangers aren't the top stack of the team, top stack of the slate. The Reds go off and put up 12 runs or something. Like, it doesn't matter what the Rangers did. So if it was a 6-game slate, the opportunity cost would be so much lower. 9-game slate, there's 18 teams. I'm not sure if it's the Rangers against Peralta that ends up being the top scoring stack of the entire slate.
It could be. It could be. That's why they're in the D tier, right? It could be. They have raw point upside, similar to Atlanta, similar to the Dodgers. But yeah, based on the opportunity cost, it's really hard to look at it. And whenever I look at situations like this, I very, very rarely go full stack against like a top 2 owned pitcher. Very rarely. Pitchers are highly owned for a reason most of the time. Typically because they are good pitchers. So usually I'm not gung-ho about going full stack against them. I do like the idea of doing mini stacks, 2-man, 3-mans, and that's what I kind of look at for Dodgers, Rangers, Braves, St. Louis on this kind of slate. That's why these guys are in the D tier. I can consider using some pieces of them because you're right. Freddie Peralta can go out there and give up 4 runs on 2 home runs. And those 2 home runs are all that you would need from the Rangers to have them be a good piece of your lineup. You wouldn't get there fully with all of them, especially, one of the other things that we talked about last year that we have not talked as much about this year is looking at stolen base upside. The Rangers do not steal base. They are a slow team, man. So that they are going to hit home runs. They're going to do extra base hits. They're not going to steal bases. So one of the things that you look at with a team like, Kansas City, they're fast. The Reds, they're fast. These teams, it's one of the reasons why they can fit in the B tier. It's because they're fast and they can give you stolen base upside too. Same thing with the Brewers, these teams that have a lot of speed also matter in different ways. But yeah, I just don't think, when we do these tiers, I just think that D tier is, okay, there's some raw point upside there, or there's some big leverage there, but I just don't need to full stack any of these teams. I just don't need to.
Okay, so here's our tier list. But the Marlins are F tier, doesn't matter. Right? Are you going to be playing one-offs and are you going to play 2-mans against Reagans?
No.
The Marlins? No.
No. Like I said, maybe with the Red Sox, maybe I might want Devers and Duran, right? Like maybe. Only because I do think there is home run upside against Steele, who has not given up a home run in like a month and a half, and he's going to regress in that way. But like the Marlins and the Giants, I have no need for either one of them.
You know what you should have a need for?
What's that?
The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's our 15-hour. Oh, I don't know what's going on here with the graphics, or I got to check on that. Way bigger than it usually is. This is our 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, as well as the advanced players guide with our custom Excel tools. So go check that out. It's I don't know, 25 hours of 21, 22 hours of audio, all broken down, just like a real course, right? All broken down in chapters and notes and everything, as well as tutorial videos with the Excel tools that James has made. So if you enjoy our game theory approach to daily fantasy sports, we I mean, we teach you everything that you would possibly need to know. The concepts of profitable DFS play, Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports at theoryofdfs.com. And James, you're at PayDirt, and do you think it's going to be a testimonial of your projections? If Carson Spears goes out, has a great game today, and if he goes out and craps the bed, PayDirtDFS.com. That's it. Your entire modeling, your entire system is going to depend on what Carson Spears does today against the Pirates.
Well, no, I'll do what every tout in this industry does, and if he does well, I'll say that it's because of the projections, and if he does bad, I'll say it's because of variance. but yeah, you can find all my projections, including Carson Spears projections, over at PayDirtDFS.com on top of some other really cool tools that have been built out. I'm gonna have season-long NFL here in like the next day or two, so pretty excited for that model we back up to.
You can always follow James, PayDirt_DFS on Twitter, me at BlenderHD on Twitter. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Remember, we got Grinders live later today, 5 p.m. Eastern. Dean and the guys will break down this slate in much more detail. Then following that is Crunch Time, which leads you right up until lock with Kevin Roth's updated weather report. They break it down position by position, all the lineups that are coming out at the time. So tune in then and tune in tomorrow. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, where I talk about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.